Welcome back to the Skillabration Podcast, everyone. Today I have Amy Ratnow, and Amy has always enjoyed the spirit of competition and being a team player. As a child, she was the only girl on an all-boys hockey team from age 6 to 12. And then as a college student, she left Indiana University to play soccer and lacrosse at Lake Forest College, where she ultimately graduated. With her flair for creativity and a drive to succeed, Amy started a corporate gift company, and that blossomed into meeting and event planning. She met several women at various stages in their careers, looking for employment, and realized she needed to help bridge the gap. Amy knew it was time to open her own company where she could build on her relationships with her client partners and support women joining the workforce looking for new jobs. It was a great way to combine her entrepreneurial side and her passion for helping people. 2017 birthed the creation of ALR Connections. Amy also enjoys yoga, spinning, pickle, music, traveling, entertainment, and sporting events with her husband and 3 kids. Skillabration Podcast, where it's career day every day. I'm your host, Nikki Lubing, the owner of Skillabration, an online foreign language school for K-12 homeschool students. My experience learning Spanish as a second language led me to building a variety of skills that set me up for life, from soft skills to financial literacy. It's my mission to provide those same skills to youth around the world through the Skillabration Podcast. I'll be interviewing guests from a variety of backgrounds and careers, ranging from teachers to business owners and blue-collar workers. I'm excited to uncover their wisdom and experiences, whether it's mastering a new language, honing leadership abilities, or learning the ins and outs of money. We're here to take your skills from zero to fuego. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. I'm so excited to have you. So I always like to let people know how I know people that come on the podcast. So Amy and I met at a networking event about a year ago, actually. And that was called Epwing, but that Epwing is no longer around. And so I had happened to ask Amy, where else do you network? And she's like, oh, I have another group. And when Amy said that, I was like, okay, yeah. I didn't realize it was her group, but her group has 3 or 4, how many
4,
different?
Yeah. 4.
Okay, so there's 4 different, what do you call them?
Groups.
They're 4 different groups in different parts of the North Shore outside of the city of Chicago. And I'm in one of those groups. It's an amazing group. So I hope we get to dig into a little bit about how you started that. Tell us a little bit of background, just of the origin story of ALR.
Yeah.
And more about
Thank you for having me, Nikki.
Yeah.
And Nikki is somebody who I was sitting next to at a networking meeting, and I thought she was so adorable, and I just wanted to have her be part of our group. So I'm so glad that you're part of the networking group. And how it became to be is I'm originally from South Bend, Indiana, a small town. And where I'm from, it felt like everybody knew everybody. And so moving here to Chicago, I didn't really know everybody. And when I started my business, I really was trying to find a way to bridge the gap between my younger self and my adult self. And so I created these networking groups. And just to go back a little bit, I was also told to stay home and work and be a stay-at-home mom, but I always wanted to work. So I was in the struggle in my own mind versus how I was raised and then what I really wanted to do. So I wanted to try to find an opportunity where I could work and be with my kids. So it was the 9 to 3 time frame. So that's where the idea came from, is that once my youngest was going into kindergarten, I had all this free time. So I really wanted to use my brain while the kids were at school. So before COVID happened, I started knocking on doors to small businesses and saying, I have a lot of women that I know, even me specifically, I want to work 9 to 3. I would be administrative assistant. I'll do a really good job. I have a really great background. And I started realizing that using the people who I knew and who I had a relationship was the greatest way for me to get into the door. Because I had taken some time away, no one wanted to give me that opportunity. Mm-hmm. So I started putting 2 and 2 together, and I realized, hey, there's a business out here where there are women who want to go back to work for either reasons of them taking time off to raise their children, for raising an elderly person, for going through a life change, like someone had passed away or there was a divorce or someone died, or just someone had like just a change of heart. Yeah. So ALR Connections is really a company that was birthed out of a need for me wanting to go back to work on a part-time basis.
Can you tell us a little bit about how did you find like the first person that you recruited, and what was the business that was willing to work with you? Because I can't imagine coming in like starting from scratch, a recruiting business from scratch. Can you give us a
Right.
little insight on that?
Yeah. So this was the craziest thing is there was a company who was a recruiting company in the city that I really admired and wanted to
Hmm.
work for myself. I
Okay.
wanted to be an administrative assistant and they wouldn't hire me because I had no experience. And I'm like,
Mhm.
ah, how am I going to get experience if you won't hire me to get experience? So I kind of felt like that was me. I went through the pain and the struggle of like knowing that I could get the job done, but no one would hire me. And then I started realizing as I got older, as I started working in various jobs in my younger age, I started realizing that all the people that I met along the way are all my friends and they all like me and they know me and they respect me. So I'm going to use them as people that can help me in what I'm trying to accomplish. So I picked up the phone and called a lot. So my husband is also in a business where he deals with a lot of business owners. So I would call
Hmm.
them on the phone and say, I know you know my husband. I have this great group of women who are all moms. I started talking to the moms and figuring out who were the women in my network. And I started bridging the gap. So I had to kind of use my brain to think, who do
Yeah.
I know that like me, that trusts me, that know me, that would understand that I have a good matchmaking ability. And so that's kind of what happened. I was utilizing what this company was doing in the city, but making it my own.
Hmm.
So I was watching what they were doing, but doing my own version of it. So I did that for a couple of years. And then in 2020, COVID
Hmm.
happened. And I had now had my business for, 3 years. I had done a pretty good job. And the guy who owned that company called me and said, will you come work for me?
Oh.
As a recruiter, not as an administrative assistant. So I was like,
Okay.
oh my gosh. So it was my dream job. I went down there. I learned from the best. I learned from the how to be a recruiter. And I
Hmm.
realized that as much as recruiting was cool, it wasn't for me. So I took all the things that I learned from him, the business side, how to recruit. I took everything, worked for him for a couple months, and then went back to doing what I was doing, which was focusing on women and small businesses because he was really working on high level executive assistants and
Hmm.
corporations. So I was
Hmm.
kind of doing something a little bit different.
Yeah. So a couple things that I'd like to add, just comments based on what you shared. Going back to what you said about why you started your business, noticing this problem and creating a solution for it. Why a lot of entrepreneurs start their businesses. They're
Right.
solvers. And
Mm-hmm.
they're a lot of times entrepreneurs are experiencing something, and that's their kind of like their spark that ignites
Mm-hmm.
them starting that business.
Yep.
So, for me, I always love teaching and I love online teaching. And, I wanted to continue working with kids, and I always wanted to have this skill building idea. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
where this podcast came into
Right.
fruition. But,
Yeah.
and then the other thing that you had mentioned was putting your own spin on it. So you can look at what's in the market and then
Mm-hmm.
create those, like you said, bridge those gaps.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's women out here that they have the skills, they have the abilities, but then they're getting overlooked maybe because of lack of experience.
Right.
So it's
And so
great
I'm
what you're
using my
doing.
connections to help bridge
Yeah.
those gaps and the relationships I've built. It's relationship building and
Hmm.
creating a niche that is specific to who the marketplace is for. Yeah, for
I
sure.
love it. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it.
Thank you.
Because you're a power networker.
Just,
So.
yeah. So what happened was when I started my business, I started realizing that I was alone on my
Mhm.
own. And how was I going to get the word out? Because recruiters typically go behind a desk and they just fish for people. And I realized that I don't like the way I feel when someone fishes to me. So that's not how I would want to be approached. And how would I want to be approached? And how would it like, so I took myself as the consumer and I realized how I would want the information to be. So I realized that creating a network of
Hmm.
people, of women who all are also owning their own businesses and who also like and trust and know me is a good way to get your name out there. So I created my niche, which was women. And so I networked with women who were business owners because that was the niche in which I was creating
Yeah.
my job and what I was looking for. So to me, the best way to get your word out is to tell people
Hmm.
who you are and what you do and build those relationships. And I think
Hmm.
that to me, that's what networking is all about, is people liking you, knowing you, and trusting you to want to give you business. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yes. Building those relationships.
Yeah. So then
Hun-
when I added the two, when I came back from the LARCO group and I brought on the two new girls to work with me, one girl in Deerfield, I said, okay, now you start a networking group. I want you to build a team around you, build a bunch of women too, so that you have your group. The same thing with the girl in Evanston. I wanted her to curate women that were very similar and like-minded, but also very different, so they can learn from
yes.
each other and grow from each other and help one another, because everyone has different strengths and weaknesses. And a lot of times when you're a sole proprietor and you're an entrepreneur, you need different ideas to brainstorm and help. You can't just be all on your own. So it's just a nice way to get that feedback.
Absolutely. I remember, I think in our last meeting, you had us go around and talk about what we had success with in the past month or so. And it was great to hear that because you could get an idea just from
Right.
that, 2-minute anecdote of
Hmm.
what you've been successful with.
Right.
Or, just having those one-on-one conversations with people in the group too. You learn
So
so
important.
much.
Yeah, it's
So,
very important. I mean, when you take the time to get to know someone, it's
mhm.
not just about who they know, it's about who they know, who they know, who they know. And so
Yes.
it's not just one dimensional. You have to look at things, in a bigger way. It's not just about the one-on-one. It's about all of it together. And especially when you like things and comment and share,
Hmm.
you're creating a larger network too,
Yeah.
so.
It's a domino effect.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Do you have any like interesting networking stories that stand out?
I have just realized how small the world is. So that can
Yeah.
be a really amazing thing, or that can be a really bad thing. So you do have to understand that, you know, in every step, like last night, for example, I went to a women's networking event and I'm sitting down talking to a friend of mine who I met through a friend, through a friend, through a friend. I mean, just the connections alone, how I met her were crazy. But I'm sitting talking to her and she comes up and says, do you know who I am? And they went to camp together when they were
Oh
kids. They
my
haven't
gosh.
seen each other since they were 13 years old.
Wow.
And that's the kind of things that happen. Today I was someplace and these two kids go to college and they're in the same fraternity together. Like the world just becomes very small.
Yeah.
And so that's what's really neat, is that everyone can see who everyone is connected to.
Hmm.
It helps with doing business with one another.
Hmm.
It really does. And with finding a job, you can look through LinkedIn and see who's connected to who and see
Hmm.
if you can reach out to that person and have coffee with that person and network with them. Yeah.
Yeah. And talk about the importance of introductions too.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little
Yeah, I
about that?
think, sometimes with networking, you think it's about who that person knows. So people understanding who you are and what you do. So then they can now introduce you to somebody that they think can help you. So I love, love, love making introductions to people where I think that they can be connected to each other. So I may not be, I mean, my husband's a financial advisor, so I won't always be able to help financial advisors. But if
Hmm.
I see that their personality can match someone else's
Yep.
personality, I can make an introduction where they can do business together. And so it's, not in my hands anymore. And I just think it's a really great way to connect your network with other people's network.
Yeah, I mean, you introduced me to one of the ladies in our group, her mother-in-law,
Hmm.
and she now is taking French lessons with my
Yeah,
French teacher.
I
So,
know. And it's funny because I introduced her so she could learn about online training, how to do it as a school. And then she now wants to learn the language. So it was for one reason and it became another reason. And that's what I'm trying to
yeah.
say. And that's why I like to create a community. I don't want to just have a
Hmm.
transactional business. I try to create a community of business where we're constantly communicating information. Like on our website, for example, we do blogging. And why do we do
Hmm.
blogging? It's so that we can create this community of information and things for people to come back and listen and hear. So, you may not need the information today, but you may need it tomorrow or next month or next year. You may not need a resume today, but you may need a resume next year. And so you can come back to my community and know, oh, there's information on resumes where I can find it. So I think it's always important that when you are looking at a company or looking for your job, to find where that community is and where that support is, wherever it is, just look for that, because if that's important to you, it should be something that you look for.
100%.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the youth. What do you think the youth need to do to prepare for interviews today?
Yeah, I think learning how to be an advocate for yourself is really, really important. Standing out, making yourself be different than everybody else. You really have to know that everyone else is competing for the same job. And so why are you going to be chosen over somebody else? So I think it's important to be an advocate, like I said, brush up on your professional skills. So make sure that you look professional, you have the right appearance of how you're supposed to look, speak professionally, make sure your resume is clean and classy and one page. There's not too much information, but there's enough that it's as if AI is reading it. That's important. But then also warm enough that, you want it to feel like someone is also writing it. Those are probably the most important things. Yeah.
Let's dig into some of those. So
Okay.
you said how to advocate for yourself. Can you expand on what you mean by that?
Yeah, I think it's always important to ask for what you want. So, I mean, obviously not till the very end, but if you want that job, you should ask for the job. You should be able to speak face to face with this person, ask for the interview, ask for the job, ask the questions, say what you want, don't be afraid. And also use LinkedIn and social media to advocate for yourself as well. So, for example, if you see that someone is connected to somebody that you would like to speak to because they work at a company that you're interested in, advocate for yourself, reach out to that person. Hey, so and so, I see that you work with so and so. I would love an introduction to that person.
Yep.
Would you make an introduction for me? Be an advocate for yourself, sell yourself. I'm really good at this, this, and that. I had an internship here, and this is why I think I'd be good. I would love it if you could help me. Sell yourself. Why should they pick you? Why are you great? So I think it's really great to always put yourself in front of the people that you want to work for. And like, what do you
Yes.
have to lose? Nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And build, like you've talked about earlier, building those relationships, because even if you're in an industry where you don't think you necessarily need to network, you probably do.
Yes.
Because even as an educator, when I was in the public school system, I would say most of the people were getting jobs because they knew somebody at the school.
It is.
So
Yes. And that's the thing is a lot of the times things are very fluid. And
yeah.
so if someone already knows somebody and they know what their qualifications are and know what they're looking for, they can just put you right in. So if someone knows that you're out there looking for a job and this is what you're
Yep.
good at and this is what you bring to the table, you're going to be the top priority in someone's head. So
Yes.
why not be putting yourself out there? It's really important.
Let's talk a little bit about professionalism too, because I think this could be an area that the youth could learn from a
Oh my God, it's
lot.
a make or break.
So
It's a make or break. Like right now, we are seeing such a sadness in the younger generation, in their follow up, in the ghosting, in the way that they are becoming professionals. And a lot of the times, employers are getting frustrated because what really makes someone stand out over someone else is the follow up, is the communication, is the transparency, is the loyalty. So loyalty and transparency to me
yeah,
are the number two thing that we're seeing that this generation is lacking.
interesting.
Is just staying at a position for a long time and going through the tough times. I mean,
Yeah,
like marriage, like jobs, anything in life, there's always going to be a tough period. And so you have
yeah,
to stick through it, and um, resilience is important. We have a really resilient generation, but they have to stick through things for sure.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
When you're talking about loyalty, so are you saying people are leaving sooner than maybe they should be because
Yes.
of maybe
Grass is greener on the other side,
okay,
or
yeah,
maybe they're not happy where they are, or it's not living up to their expectations. And things change, things evolve, companies
yeah,
change, things evolve. On one aspect, I say go with your intuition and your gut. On the other aspect, communicate, advocate.
Mm-hmm.
If you've already advocated for yourself, if you've communicated your frustrations and how you feel, and you feel you've
Yeah.
done everything you possibly can, then I feel like it's fine. But if you're
Right.
not advocating for yourself and you're just giving up,
Right.
we got to be tougher than that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. When you talk about professionalism with communication, what do you have any examples of like good versus bad or,
Proofreading, proofreading,
okay,
proofreading. I think that we rely so much on texting and AI and
sure.
not really being thoughtful and
Hmm.
mindful when we communicate. And
Hmm.
especially when you're looking for a job and asking for help, that is when you have to really be mindful of your communication skills. So it's really important to, again, proofread, to check your work, to just make sure you come across. I mean, that's your communication. That's all you have at that moment in time. So you want to make sure your T's are crossed, your I's are dot, that you really are coming across professional in your communication.
Yeah, and that's something, I mean, nowadays I'll see middle school kids because that's a lot of the community that I work with, the group that I work with. And, there are no capital I's, there's no
Yeah.
periods,
Right.
capital first word in the sentence.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something that I always encourage as a teacher because you may be representing a brand or you may be representing a company. And if you're coming off like lackadaisical
Mhm.
or just kind of nonchalant, that's another example of professionalism or
Mhm.
lack thereof.
Mhm.
So, knowing how to communicate and show that you care about what you're doing.
Mhm.
And I would say this too, like, no matter what you're being paid, you still want to show up as your best
Mhm.
because that could be your next step up. When
Right.
somebody sees how hard you're working and you're like, okay, maybe you're getting the minimum wage or whatever you're earning, and you're representing yourself as a top of the line
Mhm.
contractor, employee, whatever you may be, that is going to speak volumes.
Mhm.
So,
You never know who you just that is the most important thing, and I can't
mhm.
stress that enough because, um, it's all you have, and then
Yeah.
like then when you need referrals, so you
Hmm.
have to get a referral from somebody, a recommendation, and usually that recommendation comes from your previous work experience. So even if
Yeah.
it doesn't end well, you still have to have good communication skills in order to end it in a peaceful way so that they can refer you to another job. Because even if you aren't the right fit for the job, you can still see the person's true character, and a good boss can say, you know what, that this wasn't the right fit for them, but they're a really hard worker, or they try their best, or
Yes.
they showed up with this type of character. So that's the most important thing at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about resumes.
Mhm.
So, when you're looking at a resume and you're like, yes to this one, what makes you say yes?
I think very clear, concise, and to the point, not too fancy and all this. I mean, actually, when I was working for the agency, we had to recreate every single resume and make it
Oh,
uniform. So it didn't
okay.
matter what anyone did. It was like we had to recreate it and make it very formalized. So it would just have the basic information. So that's why it doesn't really matter how fancy it is. It's really more about the meat and potatoes of the resume, which
Sure.
is what you've done, what you can do. And really, the most important thing is they want to see how you can do the job that they're looking for you to do. So,
Hmm.
whatever it is that they're asking you to do, if you've done any of those things, rewrite them in your resume. So, if they say organized to do list, right, and you've done organized to do list, write organized to do list. So, make sure you have it matching as if a computer is reading it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, and why do you say as if a computer's reading it?
Because some companies, I would say 9 out of 10 companies, especially if it's a large company, will have an AI computer generated where
Mhm.
it will go through a system first with keyword search to see what actually are matching, and then they'll have the people go through it. So
There you go.
you have to think as if a computer is scanning it first before a real
Hmm.
person is reading it. We don't do that, and the companies that we work for don't. But if they're using like an Indeed or something like that, they
Yeah.
may pay extra to have it go through a keyword search.
I don't know if you have this for the businesses that, you're working with, but for me, sometimes a teacher might have an extra language, but it's not on the job post. So for me, if they put that on their resume, that's
Mhm.
going to stand out a lot against the others if they're trilingual versus
Yes.
bilingual. So make sure too that you're adding that extra skill, because how are we supposed to know if you don't put it on there?
Yeah, I do think that that it doesn't hurt to put skills. The more skills, the better. Obviously, you don't want to ever
Mhm.
sell yourself short, especially if it can pertain to that job. So
Yeah.
anything that you've ever done in your life that can pertain to what they're looking for in the specific job,
Yeah.
which can make you more robust, is important. Again, they don't want to read access information that has nothing to do with the job. That means nothing to them. It's more about what is good for the job. It makes
Yeah.
you, yeah.
Do you think there are kind of like overlapping keywords that those computerized systems look for, or
They're
no?
usually the same words that they are using in the job
Okay.
description.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
It's like the
Got it.
keyword search, like they want to see that,
Yeah.
oh, it's literally the same, and so you just kind of have
Yes.
to read what the job description is asking for. You kind of
Yeah.
have to like mirror it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that goes back to editing your resume for each job you
Oh
apply
yeah.
for.
Being mindful. And the same
Yes.
thing, like I would look to see, I would go to LinkedIn. Who works for that company? Do I know anybody there? Does anybody that I know who works for that company know anybody else that I know? Can I send that
Hmm.
person an email? Hi, I'm applying for this job. This is the job. And maybe send a reminder. I'm really good at this. Remember, I used to do this, this, and that. My skill sets are this. I'd love if you could put a good word in for me. That's about being an advocate for yourself, is using your connections, using you have to sell yourself. I mean, at the end of the
Yes.
day, you're selling you. And why is somebody going to pick you over somebody else?
Yeah, I would talk about following up as a great aspect of that, because
Hmm.
for me, I'm always looking for new teachers to contract. So I'm always going through resumes as
Hmm.
well. And I get very few teachers who follow up.
Right.
Like maybe I forgot, I am busy. So maybe I just didn't get a chance to
Yeah. Do you want the
look
job
over
or
it.
not? Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
you
then,
learn a lot about somebody through their
oh,
behaviors and how they'll
yes.
apply for a job. And so
Yes.
why not give it everything that you want? And if you don't want it, then don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't waste your time or other people's time if you don't want it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have a few questions at the end of my application. And when people put a lot of effort into that, it's not that I'm expecting them to write like 2 paragraphs or something. But if they give me a solid answer, like a
Hmm.
mini paragraph, that's going to stand out versus
Right.
somebody who writes 1 or 2 sentences and there's no
Engaging.
depth. Yeah, like if there's no depth to your answer,
Hmm.
why should I respond?
Right.
Why should I put my effort into that if you're not putting effort into the application?
Hmm.
So
You have to sell yourself. If you're
you
not going to
do.
sell yourself, no one's going to sell you, for you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
mhm.
What do you think that the younger generation, whether it's high school students or college students, what can they do to stand out in the job market?
I think internships are really big. I think anytime you can try an industry or try to work in a work environment is the best way to know what you like and know what
Hmm.
you've tried and just to show that you have the experience. So, yeah,
Hmm.
internships for sure. And YouTube, I mean, you can learn so much from YouTube. And I think getting your QuickBooks certification, you can learn on your own. I mean, they're already computer savvy, so they have a step above everyone else. But as long as they show their loyalty, I think they're going to do great.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And volunteer experience can always help too.
Yes, absolutely.
What are the top 3 skills that have served you in your career?
Oh, geez. I definitely think communication skills are so wildly important. Being able to communicate verbally,
Mhm.
being able to communicate written is huge, especially nowadays. Even though technology has become so much easier, it's become so much more important that we communicate through written communication
Mhm.
and networking, just being able to talk and to be able to feel confident in who you are and what you're doing and in yourself is so important. Looking the part, I mean, you
Yeah.
have to like be professional.
Yes.
getting yourself a nice jacket, a nice
Yeah.
pair of pants, even if you have one same suit that you wear for everything, it's okay. Wear that suit. And it's better to always
Yes.
be overdressed than to be underdressed. Even
Yes.
for a Zoom, I think it's always nice when someone, I mean, I
Yeah.
interview people all the time. I think it's really important to just look your best. And also go put yourself out there. I think, I have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people who I may not have a job opportunity for them right now, but I may have a job opportunity for them next
Mm-hmm.
month or next
Mm-hmm.
year. And you never know. So the more open that you are, the more opportunities that you're going to allow to come in, as
Yeah.
opposed to being closed off. And so it also allows you to meet different people that you may not have met, learn about industries that you may not have been open to. There's so much out there if you just allow yourself to be open.
Yes, I agree. Be bold and unafraid, you
Yeah,
guys.
yeah, yeah. You have to be, it's
Yes.
doggy dog world.
It is. And you're gonna find other people or people that are in the room who are also nervous or whatever.
Oh yeah,
Maybe they're, everybody has a little sense of insecurity in some
for
way or shape or
sure.
form.
Yeah.
So you're in the same boat. Don't worry. Just put yourself out there.
And everyone has been where you've been. I mean,
Yes.
that's why I created this job, is because
Mm-hmm.
of the problem solving, because we know what it's like to feel the pain. And that's why you're doing the tutoring, because you know what it felt like to want to learn the language and not know
Yes.
the language, and we all
Mm-hmm.
have been there, so we can empathize with what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Um, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Gosh, I feel like every step has gotten me to where I am today. So I don't regret any part of all. I did try a lot of different jobs, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like without all of those jobs, I wouldn't have learned what I needed as a
Yeah.
human being in order to feel really good. And I don't know. I have younger kids now, one who's going off to college, and I don't know if you need to have it all figured out. I think you just need to live in the moment and be open and try new things and just believe in whatever it is that you're doing. Like I
Mm-hmm.
believe in what I'm doing. So to me, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like I have a mission that I'm very proud about and I love. And so for me, I'm very fortunate that I have been able to do something that I feel really good about every day. And I
Yeah.
think if you feel really good about what you're doing, then it doesn't become work. And this
Mm-hmm.
is where you spend the majority of your day, your energy, and your time. So
Mm-hmm.
you might as well do it in a place where you love,
Yeah.
it feels
Yeah.
right, feels good, because it is the majority of your time where you're
Mm-hmm.
spending it, if you think about
Yeah.
it,
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
So be
Um,
mindful, like really think about what you want. Don't do what other people want you to do. Do what you want to do. Really think about that. It's important. It's an important decision. Really, it is.
yeah. Yeah. Well, that kind of reminds me of what you said earlier about you had a little internal conflict about being a stay-at-home mom
Yeah.
versus getting a job. Let's talk a little bit about that if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Um, how did you make that transition when you were thinking
Yeah,
about
I mean,
that?
it was really hard. So what I first did was I created a business at home that I could work from
Oh,
home, thinking that was
okay.
what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And then in 2009, there was a crash at the marketplace. And so I used to have a gift basket business in corporate gifts. So all of the companies had to get rid of that. So I had to
Oh.
repurpose and pivot and figure it out. And so I was trying to find a job, a 9 to 3 job, and I was going into these companies and they just wouldn't open their minds to that 9 to 3. And so I would have to sell myself and advocate for myself and do that, And so that's what I was doing. I was trying to find those jobs. And so that's when the light bulb came up in my head. And I was
Mhm.
like, wait, companies just need to understand that this is a thing, like this
Yeah.
is fine. There's all these women. So it became a mission of mine to talk to these companies about it. And then COVID happened, and then everybody realized that hybrid can work
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
remote can work. It really opened people's eyes to the whole hybrid COVID thing. So it kind of helped. I mean, COVID helped me a little bit in that, I'm not going to
Same.
lie,
Same.
right?
Yeah.
Then I used to interview all the time in person, and now I can I
Mhm.
can interview online. So it's nice. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, same here because with online tutoring, especially like online teaching was starting and a lot of what I did in the beginning was through other countries. So I
okay,
taught English as a second language to the Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
And with any tutoring I did locally, I would go to people's houses or I would go to the library. So then when COVID hit, it was like, oh, we could do this on Zoom. Why not? I mean, I was pro doing that before, but
No
I
one
think a
knows.
lot of, yeah, there's misconceptions, I think. And it also depends on your experience, your teaching, your quality of teaching. But to me, if you're a quality teacher, you really know what you're doing. It doesn't matter if you're in person or online, you
Right.
can teach the same.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
I know, it's
but
crazy. I know
and
it's wonderful. Yeah.
that's not to say I don't appreciate in-person interaction at all,
Yes.
because I absolutely do, and I
Oh,
know you do
100%.
too.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm all about in person, but it
Yeah.
has, I have to see and feel and, all that
Yes.
kind of stuff. So no, but it's been amazing. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's funny. Yeah.
Before we end too, I'd love to hear a little bit about your leadership skills. Like, were you always this good of a leader? Because you're a great leader.
Oh, you're sweet. I think I'm the youngest of two older brothers. Be
Okay.
playing on the hockey team with all those boys. Like I had to
Yeah.
be scrappy. So I think you are kind of born, like with whatever, your makeup of yourself of what, you feel you got to like just take charge, So I think I always just kind of had to. I see that I have two boys and a girl too. So I have what I
Okay.
am. And I see that in my younger daughter that she's just always
Yeah.
the captain and the leader. And I just think it's just the birth order, of
Yeah.
like the social dynamic. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, so
I mean, it's interesting that your parents, from what I gather, it sounds like your parents were more traditional, but yet you were on the boys hockey team. So
I
how did that
know.
how did that happen?
You're right. It was a very conflicting
Yeah.
childhood, because it was
Yeah.
like very much like very traditional, but yet
Yeah.
like very like cross every boundary of like things you could do, so it was like, so that's where the entrepreneurial spirit comes from, but it was a small town where, yeah. And it was weird because at the time no girls were on the hockey team. And my mom had sewed pink, all the way down my pants and my shirt and everything. So it was like definitely trying to make a mark for sure. Yeah.
So cool though, and I've always loved hockey.
Yeah.
Like whenever, and I'm not like a sports person per
Mhm.
se, but if anybody ever asked me like what sports do you like, I always loved hockey. I think
Hockey's so
that's so
cool.
cool.
I know. It's
Yeah.
so cool. I know. I do too. Yeah. It was fun. Yeah.
That's
Yeah, it's
awesome.
really, really cool. But I mean, I'm trying to think what else I think that at the end of the day, it's where you're not in this alone. So I think the young kids just have to be resourceful. And like,
Mhm.
there's so much information that's out there and you need to just look for it and ask
Mhm.
for help and reach out to people and network and use your network of people. I mean, this is like, I always say, all the friendships and the relationships and things that you did as a kid, now it's like coming back now. You can call on those neighbors and those friends and, all those relationships that you had.
Yes,
The
exactly.
next,
And don't be afraid to ask for advice from your
yeah,
elders.
right.
The youth doesn't want to do that, but
Yeah, we know a lot. We do. We're
yeah,
smart. I promise we are.
experience.
Yes. We don't know TikTok as much as you do, but we do know a lot. What you
Exactly.
do, but yeah. Yeah.
Is there any closing thoughts, anything else you want to add before we end our episode here?
I think that, again, listen to your parents. They probably know more
Mhm.
than you think that they do. But I think that, again, you can't underestimate your connections. It's so
Mhm.
important to go out for coffee, see people face to face, really go back old school and, be different and sell yourself and just be unique and be an advocate. So, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Amy.
you. Thank you so much. It was so nice to see you today and have this
Yes,
wonderful talk. So thank you. Best of luck.
absolutely. Thank you so much. We'll see
Thanks.
you guys in the next episode.